We live in a time where everyone wants to start a business. The promise of freedom, the appeal of calling your own shots, the idea that you'll never have to answer to anyone again. It sounds like the ultimate escape from a life you didn't choose. But there's something no one really talks about. Something buried beneath the highlight reels, the Instagram success stories, and the endless parade of so-called overnight millionaires. And it's this. Most people don't fail at business because they lack talent. They fail because they believed a lie. They believed that business would be easy. They believed that passion alone would carry them. They believed that wanting it badly enough would be enough. But want without wisdom is dangerous, and hustle without direction is a slow death. Here's the truth. Brutal, unfiltered, and absolutely necessary. Most people aren't ready. Not because they're weak, not because they're not smart, but because they've been lied to about what it takes. They think starting a business means stepping into a better life. But what it really means is stepping into war. A war with your fears, your habits, your comfort zone, and worst of all, your own excuses. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. If you haven't built the habits, the mindset, the discipline, it doesn't matter how good your idea is, because business doesn't reward potential. It rewards preparation. And most people are in love with the outcome, but allergic to the process. They want the reward, not the responsibility. They want the spotlight, not the scars. That's why they give up when it gets hard. That's why they quit the moment no one's clapping. That's why they scroll endlessly through success stories instead of writing their own, because the dream is easy to sell, but the cost, that's harder to face. But here's the reason you should keep watching, because if you're willing to face that cost, if you're willing to stop chasing the illusion and start building the foundation, you'll become unstoppable. Not just in business, but in life. You'll stop looking for the easy way and start becoming the kind of person who can handle any way. Because here's what no one tells you. The game isn't just about building a business. It's about building a version of yourself who doesn't break when things go quiet. A version of yourself who doesn't need praise, who doesn't wait for perfect timing, who doesn't ask for permission. A version of yourself who understands that success is earned, not given. And that building something real will hurt. It will stretch you. It will test every ounce of who you are, but it will also change you. If you're still watching, it's because something inside you already knows. You felt it. That tug in your chest when you think about doing more with your life. That frustration when you see people with less talent winning just because they didn't wait. That burning feeling when you hear people say, be realistic, and you know deep down, you weren't made to settle. You were made to build. Not just for the money, not for status, but because there's something in you that can't stand the idea of living on repeat, waking up to someone else's schedule, trading time for comfort, and calling it a life. You want more. And that's not greed. That's growth trying to speak through you. But before you jump in, before you register the business name, before you spend a dime on a logo or a website or a course, ask yourself this. Are you ready for the truth? Are you ready to outgrow your excuses? Are you ready to go broke before you get rich, to be misunderstood, to be lonely, to be patient when everything in you wants to rush? Because that's the real path, not glamorous, not quick, but real. And the ones who make it, they're not always the smartest, not always the most skilled, but they're the ones who decided to stop pretending, decided to stop waiting, decided to go all in, not on a business idea, but on themselves. So don't start a business because you want to escape your job. Don't start because you're tired of listening to someone else. Start because you're ready to become someone else. Someone who doesn't fold under pressure. Someone who learns, adapts, fights, and grows. Someone who earns respect in silence and speaks loudest through results. Because when you become that person, the business isn't the goal. It's just the result. And that's when everything changes. But that's where most people lose. Not in the decision to start, but in the reason why they start. They chase the dream, but they don't question it. The freedom, the lifestyle, the so-called success. It all looks good from a distance. But what if that dream is a trap? Everywhere you look, someone's flashing their version of success. Cars they don't own, offices they don't use, hustle quotes plastered over sunsets. And somehow, it all looks real. It feels inspiring. It makes you want to move fast, like you're already behind. Like if you don't start now, you'll miss your shot. That's the illusion. It convinces you that starting is the hardest part, that once you begin, everything will fall into place, that confidence, money, and motivation will follow. But starting is not the test. Staying is. Surviving the boring, the slow, the invisible days when it feels like nothing is working, that's the real test. And you can't pass that test if the only thing driving you is a fantasy someone else sold you. If your reason is weak, your business will be weaker. Because when it gets hard, and it will, you won't lean into the pain. You'll look for a way out. That's what happens when people build dreams on sand. They fall in love with the image, but they never check the foundation. They chase lifestyle before they've built character. They want the freedom, but forget that freedom is earned. Through late nights, through sacrifice, through repetition so unglamorous, no one claps for it. The truth, you don't need more motivation. You need alignment. You need to ask yourself, what are you really building this for? Because if you're building it for attention, you'll collapse the moment the likes stop coming. If you're building it for approval, you'll burn out trying to prove something that never needed proving. And if you're building it for money, you'll quit as soon as the cash doesn't show up on schedule. But if you're building it for meaning, for purpose, then you can weather the storm. You'll keep moving even when no one's watching. You'll find clarity in the chaos and grit when everyone else folds. And that's rare. That's power. Because the dream they sold you, it's incomplete. They showed you the end result, not the process. They showed you the peak, but not the climb. What they didn't show you were the quiet sacrifices, the nights you'll question everything, the moments when you'll wonder if you're built for this. But that doubt, that's part of it. It's not a sign to stop. It's a signal to go deeper. Because clarity doesn't come when things are easy. It comes when you're standing in the middle of the fog, still moving, still believing, even when nothing is certain. This isn't about being fearless. It's about being brave enough to keep going despite the fear. That's what builds resilience. That's what sharpens your mind, your voice, your decisions. Not hype, not inspiration, conviction, the kind that doesn't fade with trends. So stop asking, how fast can I get there? Start asking, how strong can I become while I'm getting there? Because that's strength. That's what sustains you when motivation dies. That's what turns a shaky start into a solid mission. That's what builds something that lasts, not just a business, but a legacy. And maybe no one told you this before, but it matters. Your business is only as strong as your reason. If your why doesn't move you to tears, it won't move you through trials. If it doesn't make you wake up early, stay up late, and fight through doubt, it's not big enough. This isn't about building to impress. It's about building to impact. Because at the end of the day, success isn't about how you look to the world. It's about what you built when the world wasn't looking. So don't build to escape something. Build to become someone. And if you can do that, if you can strip away the noise, the pressure, the fake urgency, and really listen to what drives you, you'll start building for the right reasons. And that's when momentum hits. That's when the work starts to feel like purpose. That's when you stop chasing the dream and start living the discipline. You don't need another motivation post. You don't need another perfect plan. You need to be honest with yourself, brutally honest about why you want this, about what you're willing to give for it, about the kind of life you want to build when no one's watching and no one's clapping and no one's validating you. That's where it begins. That's where it always begins. And if you're still here, it's because part of you is ready to stop running toward the dream and start building the foundation, not the glamorous part, the real part, the part where you rise, not because it's easy, but because you refuse to quit. And once you've made that decision to stop chasing the illusion and start building the foundation, there's something else you need to face, the storm. Because no matter how prepared you think you are, it's coming. Not if, but when. And it's not the kind of storm you see on the forecast. It's the one that shows up in your head, in your habits, in your doubt. The kind that doesn't knock, it breaks in and asks, are you sure you're built for this? This is where most people fold. Not because they lack ambition, but because they never trained their mind for the weight of uncertainty. They were ready for the wins, not the war. And business is a war, not against competitors or markets or algorithms, but a war against the parts of you that still want comfort. The part that says, you can't. The part that whispers, maybe later. The part that's addicted to convenience, to safety, to staying the same. That part will scream when the money doesn't show up fast enough. It will beg you to stop when the first failure hits. It will try to convince you that effort is pointless, that discipline is punishment, that dreams are dangerous. And unless you're stronger than that voice, you will listen. You'll slow down. You'll make excuses. You'll start looking for a way back to what's familiar. Even if what's familiar was the thing that made you miserable in the first place. That's what the storm does. It exposes everything you haven't strengthened yet. But here's the truth you need to hold on to. Pressure doesn't break you. It reveals you. It shows you what's real and what's still a fantasy. And that's a gift. Because you can't grow by avoiding the struggle. You grow by walking straight into it and refusing to leave the same. You don't develop courage reading about it. You develop it the moment you want to quit, and you don't. That's the moment you become dangerous. Not to others, but to the weaker version of yourself that used to run. And yes, it will hurt. There will be days you wake up and feel like nothing is working, days where people question you, doubt you, dismiss you. But that's not the moment to shrink. That's the moment to lean in, because pain, when faced with purpose, turns into power. If you're building something real, there will be silence. Long stretches where no one claps. No recognition, no proof it's working, just the quiet grind of discipline repeating itself day after day. And most people can't handle that. They confuse silence with failure. But you need to understand something deeper. Silence is where roots grow. That's where your character is being shaped, where your standards are rising, where your future is forming in the dark. And when you keep showing up through that silence, you build the kind of confidence that doesn't depend on anyone else. Confidence that's earned, not borrowed. Because this isn't just about money. It never was. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't flinch under pressure, who doesn't panic when things get hard, who doesn't run when the applause fades. Every struggle you're facing is shaping that person. The sleepless nights, they're building your mental endurance. The failures, they're sharpening your strategy. The doubt, it's teaching you what it feels like to keep going without certainty. And that ability to keep moving without proof is rare. It's what separates the ones who try from the ones who build, the ones who dream from the ones who do. You weren't made to crumble. You weren't made to wish. You were made to rise. And rising doesn't happen when everything's going well. It happens when nothing makes sense. And you still choose to show up with fire in your chest and focus in your mind. Because that storm, it's not the end. It's the beginning of your transformation. So if you're in it right now, if you're feeling the weight, the pressure, the isolation, don't run. Don't wish it away. Embrace it. Because what's waiting on the other side isn't just success, it's strength. It's clarity. It's the real you finally stepping forward without apology. And when that version of you shows up, everything changes. You stop doubting yourself. You stop needing validation. You stop chasing shortcuts. You become consistent, committed, unstoppable. So the question isn't whether the storm is coming. The question is, who will you become when it does? And once you realize that the storm isn't here to destroy you, but to develop you, something inside you shifts. You stop fearing the pain and start respecting it. You stop avoiding the process and begin to lean into it. Because the truth is, every ounce of freedom you crave comes with a price. And that price is paid in full through discipline, discomfort, and relentless repetition. This is the part they don't glamorize. The lonely hours, the silent sacrifices, the moments where you're doing everything right and still nothing seems to be happening. But understand this, just because it's not visible doesn't mean it's not working. Growth is invisible until it's undeniable. And yet most people walk away before that moment comes. Not because they don't want success, but because they never expected it to feel this heavy. They thought freedom would be light. They thought passion would carry them. But the truth is, passion fades. What stays is purpose. And purpose doesn't always feel exciting. Sometimes it feels like discipline without applause, like showing up again and again with no promise of reward, just the belief that it's worth it. That belief is what separates the dreamers from the doers. Because anyone can be excited on day one. Anyone can post their goals. Anyone can talk about where they're headed. But few are willing to build in silence when progress feels slow and the world isn't watching. And if you want to be one of the few, you need to understand this clearly. Freedom doesn't come from avoiding hard things. It comes from facing them so many times, they no longer control you. You want the freedom to choose your day? Earn it. By doing the work no one sees, by staying committed when it's boring, by training your mind to keep going when everything in you screams to stop. That's the cost. That's the price of ownership, not just of a business, but of your life. Because what you're really building isn't just a brand or a product. You're building resilience. You're creating a version of yourself that doesn't negotiate with fear, doesn't get paralyzed by problems, and doesn't crumble when the pressure turns up. That version of you is rare, and it doesn't come from motivation. It comes from mastery. Mastery of your mindset, your habits, your decisions. And mastery doesn't arrive. It's built brick by brick, hour by hour through choices no one claps for. But if you stay in the process long enough, you become dangerous because now you're no longer addicted to results. You're committed to progress. You're no longer waiting for the storm to pass. You're learning to walk through it, eyes forward, heart steady. And that's when the game changes because the world can take your money. It can doubt your vision. It can delay your results, but it can't take away who you've become in the process. And that is your real asset. When your identity shifts from someone who hopes to someone who executes, you become unstoppable. You stop looking for comfort and start looking for challenge. You stop avoiding failure and start using it. You stop needing the world to believe in you because you finally do. So ask yourself right now, are you building for comfort or are you building for freedom? Comfort will keep you stuck. It'll give you just enough to survive, but never enough to soar. It'll whisper lies to keep you safe. But freedom demands everything. It demands sacrifice. It demands growth. It demands the version of you that no longer makes excuses, that no longer hesitates, that no longer waits for someone to save you. No one is coming to save you, and that's the most liberating truth you'll ever accept. Because once you stop waiting for permission, once you stop needing the world to make it easier, you take back your power. And when you do that, when you take full ownership, when you choose to be all in, no matter the storm, no matter the silence, nothing can stop you. Not fear, not failure, not time, because now you're not hoping for success. You're becoming the person who creates it. And when you do that, success doesn't become something you chase. It becomes something you attract because it's who you are. So don't wish it were easier. Train yourself to be stronger. Don't wait for the path to clear. Forge your own. Because the storm was never sent to stop you. It was sent to prepare you. And if you can face that storm without flinching, there's nothing you won't be able to face after. That's why this path isn't for everyone. Because most people don't want freedom. They want comfort dressed up as ambition. They want the rewards, but not the resistance. They want the outcome, but not the wait. And when they realize that this journey doesn't hand out trophies for effort, they fold, but not you. You didn't come this far to flirt with potential. You came to break cycles. You came to build something that reflects who you really are, not who the world tried to make you into. You came to step away from average, and that means you're going to have to make a decision that most people will never understand. You will have to give up what is easy. You will have to walk away from the illusion that things should happen quickly. You will have to stop chasing inspiration and start creating structure. And that's uncomfortable because it means taking full control of your time, your choices, your standards. It means confronting every excuse and every habit that's been quietly holding you back. But that's the price of freedom. Not just external freedom, the schedule, the money, the autonomy, but internal freedom. The kind that only comes when you know, without question, that you've earned your confidence. When you don't have to fake belief in yourself anymore because you've proven it in silence through every hard thing you didn't walk away from. And that kind of belief, that's unshakable because it's not based on luck. It's not based on other people's opinions. It's based on work, real work. Work that didn't give you results right away, but gave you something more important, identity. You became someone you respect. And that changes everything. Because from that point on, it's not about forcing motivation anymore. It's not about hyping yourself up to keep going. You keep going because it's who you are now. You don't quit because quitting would betray the person you've become. And when your identity shifts like that, your business, your life, your future, it all starts aligning. That's why it's not about how fast you grow. It's about how deep your roots go. Because shallow success dies in harsh seasons. But when your roots are built on commitment, discipline, purpose, you can weather anything. Markets crash, people doubt, plans fall apart, but you don't. Because you didn't build this on trends. You built it on truth. And here's the truth no one can deny. The world doesn't owe you success. It doesn't care how much potential you have. It doesn't care how hard you tried. It rewards the people who show up anyway. The ones who find a way even when there's no clear path. The ones who stop waiting for permission and start moving with conviction. If that's you, if you're willing to stop negotiating with your own potential, stop bargaining with your future, stop playing small so others feel comfortable, then you are already ahead of 99% of people. Because most never get past the fear. Most never even start. But you started. And now it's time to keep going. Not with wishful thinking, but with warrior focus. With the kind of mindset that doesn't chase the dream, it builds it every single day, regardless of how it feels. Because feelings fade, but discipline stays, focus stays, purpose stays, and that's the shift you have to make. Stop letting your feelings make your decisions. Stop letting your emotions vote on your future. Start deciding with clarity that this life you want, it's not just possible, it's inevitable if you're willing to pay the price. And yes, the price is high, but so is the reward. Because you're not just building a business. You're building a mindset, a legacy, A reputation with yourself that says, I don't quit when it's hard. I don't fold when it's slow. I don't lower my standards to fit my circumstances. And once that reputation is built, it fuels everything. Your confidence grows, your clarity sharpens. You stop looking for shortcuts because you realize you are the shortcut. Your consistency, your habits, your vision, your resilience. That's the edge. That's the leverage. That's what no one else can copy. So keep building. Keep showing up when it's not fun. Keep training your mind to operate on principle, not preference. Because every day you do, you get closer, not just to success, but to peace. The peace of knowing you didn't wait for it. You became it. And when that happens, when your results finally catch up to your mindset, people will ask how you did it. And the answer won't be a secret. It'll be simple. You decided you were worth the work, and you never looked back. The moment you decide that you're worth the work, something shifts forever. You stop chasing opportunities and start creating them. You stop waiting for someone to discover you and begin discovering what you're truly capable of. And suddenly, the world doesn't look the same, not because it changed, but because you did. But now comes the question that separates those who make it from those who don't. Are you willing to pay the full price? Because the truth is, most people pay half. They commit when it's convenient. They show up when they feel inspired. They put in effort, but only until it gets uncomfortable. And then they wonder why it isn't working. But this path doesn't reward part-time effort. It demands everything. Your focus, your time, your energy, your patience. Not once, but over and over again without applause. You can't cheat your way to greatness. You can't skip steps and expect the result to last. What you build quickly will crumble even faster if the foundation isn't solid. And the only way to lay that foundation is through work that no one sees, through consistency when no one notices, and through sacrifice when no one understands. That's what makes this journey so rare. Not because success is out of reach, but because so few are willing to give up what's holding them back. You say you want to grow, but are you willing to leave behind the habits that keep you average? You say you want to lead, but are you willing to stand alone while others stay silent? You say you want freedom, but are you willing to walk through discipline even when it feels like chains? Most aren't. That's why they stay stuck. Not because they lack opportunity, but because they keep running from the cost. They chase hacks, shortcuts, and inspiration. But you can't build an empire on borrowed energy. It has to come from within, from fire, from conviction, or from a decision so deep it echoes in everything you do. Because that decision, it changes how you move. You stop needing motivation. You start acting from identity. You stop asking, how long will this take? And start asking, how far can I go? You stop trying to survive and start building to thrive, and people will notice. Not at first, not when you want them to, but eventually they'll feel the shift in your presence. They'll see the consistency in your results, and they'll ask what changed. But the truth is, nothing around you changed. You just stopped living at the level of your excuses. You stopped settling for the easy way out. You finally believe that the life you want is possible and that you are responsible for building it. And that belief, that's everything. Because the moment you truly believe it's possible, your brain stops seeking comfort and starts seeking strategy. Your emotions stop controlling your effort. Your fear stops being the loudest voice in the room. And that's when you start moving with power. Not arrogance, power. The power that comes from discipline, from self-respect, from knowing you don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be persistent. From knowing that nobody is coming to save you, but also nobody needs to because you've got this. That's the kind of power that builds empires from nothing. That creates movements. That inspires others without even trying, because your example speaks louder than your words ever could. And the best part, that power was always in you. It was just buried beneath doubt, fear, and distraction. Now you're clearing all of that away. Now you're becoming clear, sharp, relentless. Not because you have to prove anything, but because you've finally seen what you're capable of when you stop holding back. And maybe for the first time, you're realizing something deep. This journey isn't about business. It's not even about success. It's about becoming. It's about unlocking the version of you that was never supposed to stay small. The version of you that's been waiting patiently for you to stop playing by the rules of comfort and start writing your own. This is your chance right now to stop watching other people build and start laying bricks of your own. To stop scrolling through stories and start living one. To stop shrinking yourself to fit into boxes that were never built for you and start standing in your full strength. And that strength isn't given. It's earned through hard days, through failure, through silence, through staying in the game when every part of you wants to walk away. If you can do that, If you can stay when it's hard, move when it's unclear, build when it feels slow, you'll earn something no one can take from you. Unshakable belief. And with that belief, you can build anything. And once you've earned that belief, real belief, built through fire, not fantasy, you become different. You think different. You move different. You stop second guessing every step because you've proven again and again that you can walk through storms and not break. You've learned that resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you forge. And now it's part of you, permanent, non-negotiable. That's when momentum becomes real because belief fuels action and action builds results, not overnight, not in a flash, but steadily, consistently, like a fire that doesn't burn out. While others are still looking for motivation, you're stacking wins, small ones, daily ones, quiet ones, the kind of wins that don't look impressive to the outside world but change everything on the inside. You start keeping promises to yourself. You do what you said you'd do even when no one is watching, especially then. That's what separates builders from talkers. That's what separates leaders from spectators. Because your business, your dream, your mission, none of it will grow beyond the level of your personal discipline. The world rewards people who follow through. It rewards people who don't just speak about ambition, but live it in how they wake up, how they think, how they train their mind to operate even when everything goes wrong. And it will go wrong. Things will break, plans will fall apart, people will disappoint you. But if you've built belief in the dark, none of that will break you because you're no longer building for applause. You're building from alignment. That's the shift the world never sees coming. You stop craving validation and start embodying vision. You stop performing for praise and start producing from purpose. And when you get to that level, you're no longer just running a business, you're leading yourself. And that's the foundation of everything great. Leadership starts with self. Before you lead a team, before you build an audience, before you attract opportunity, you lead you. You control what you can. You show up early. You stay late. You give more than you take. You push yourself because you respect yourself. And when that becomes your standard, life starts to respond. Not because it suddenly got easier, but because you got stronger. You stopped chasing ease and started chasing excellence. You stopped running from discipline and began walking straight into it. And now you're not afraid of pressure. You invite it because you know pressure is the privilege of those who are growing. It's not punishment. It's proof. And when you carry yourself like that, when your actions reflect your future, not your feelings, you become magnetic, not because you're perfect, not because you have all the answers, but because you walk with intention. People can feel it. They sense the difference. And that's when everything changes. Clients, partnerships, growth. It all starts aligning, not because you forced it, but because you became it. You became the kind of person who doesn't need the outcome to feel certain. You move before the results show up. You execute before the world claps. And because of that, you always stay ahead, not in the spotlight, in the process. And that's where greatness is forged. Greatness isn't found in loud wins. It's found in quiet sacrifices. The early mornings where you train your mind to rise above emotion. The long nights where you build systems instead of scrolling for shortcuts. The decisions you make when no one is looking. The integrity you hold when no one is checking. That's where your edge is born. And make no mistake, it is an edge. Because the world is full of people who start fast but quit early. People who get inspired but don't get disciplined. Or people who want the glory but can't handle the grind. But not you. Because you're not here for hype, you're here for impact. And that impact begins the moment you decide to stop being the version of you that settles. The moment you stop making your emotions your boss and start making your vision your compass. That version of you, the one who doesn't need perfect conditions, doesn't wait for signs, doesn't wait for support, is already inside, waiting. And every time you choose to show up, even when it's hard, even when it's quiet, even when it feels like nothing is working, you bring that version closer to the surface. You become that person more and more until one day you look around and realize everything around you changed because you did. So keep building, keep moving forward, keep honoring your standards because every decision you make right now isn't just shaping your day, it's shaping your destiny. And the more you choose discipline over distraction, the more you step into the life that was waiting for you all along. One that doesn't require permission, one that doesn't bend to fear, one that's built on belief and backed by action. And once you understand that your life bends to your level of discipline, not your level of desire, the game is no longer about how badly you want it. It's about how consistently you show up for it. Wanting is cheap. anyone can want, or wanting makes noise. But discipline builds results. Quiet, relentless, undeniable. This is where most people disconnect. They confuse intensity with consistency. They go all in for a few days, maybe a few weeks. Then life punches back and they retreat. But this path doesn't reward those who show up when it's easy. It rewards those who refuse to stop when it gets hard. That's what separates the committed from the curious, the builders from the dabblers, the unstoppable from the forgotten. You don't get to escape the cost. No one does. There's a tax for greatness, and it doesn't come once. It's paid daily, in decisions, in discomfort, in doing the thing even when every part of you wants to hit snooze, scroll endlessly, or take the easy way out. The people who rise are the ones who pay that tax without negotiating, because they know what's waiting on the other side of discipline is worth far more than anything comfort ever gave them. You'll never meet a strong person who had it easy. You'll never find a high performer who didn't walk through seasons of isolation, fatigue, and doubt.